Podcast guest is Myson Jones with Basketball to Business Podcast. I'm here with Coach Arvin Mosley Jr. Coach, how's it going?
Going great, going great. Thanks for having me, Myson.
No, thank you for your time. So I've been watching your Facebook posts, and there's not many. I don't want to call you a trainer. You're an executive director at what's it called again? Your business, Dreams Insight.
Dreams Insight Foundation. That's one of my businesses. Yep, that's my nonprofit that I handle a lot of my mentoring and coaching clinics and things of that nature through there.
So I see so much engagement there, and it just piqued my interest. And I said, I have to talk to this man. I have to see how he's doing what he's doing, and what are his secrets. So before we do that, can you tell us a little background about your playing history, your coaching history?
Yeah, I played 4 years of college basketball, 2 years of community college, 2 years of small school ball. And I was an assistant coach, right out of college. I was an assistant coach and got hired as an assistant at high school, then at college. And I was a college assistant for a couple of years and decided I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree. And so then I served as a high school assistant, then a graduate assistant. And then I got hired back at my alma mater, Tacoma Community College. And I was the head coach there for 5 seasons. Coached in the IBL for a couple seasons, and then I was hired at Evergreen State, the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, and I was the head coach there for 4 seasons.
So why is it the Evergreen State?
You know what? That is just what it is. I mean, it's the Evergreen State College. It might be but it's the Evergreen State College. It's not. Some people call it Evergreen College or Evergreen University. The name of the school is the Evergreen State College. I mean, that's the name of it, brother.
So who are some of the most notable players or talented players that you've had the chance to coach? Sounds like you have an extensive coaching history.
I mean, I've coached in a Jamal Crawford program for 4 summers. So, I mean, I've coached NBA All-Stars, slam dunk champions. I think Justin Dentman was the D-League MVP one year, or the All-Star Game MVP in the D-League one year. So, I mean, I've coached them all that have come through Seattle. I've coached them all in the Pro-Am at one point or another. I always laugh about coaching the Terrence triplets one game: Terrence Williams, Terrence Ross, and Terrence Jones. Obviously not related, but I called them the Terrence. I don't know if they thought it was funny, but hey, I've been pretty blessed to coach a lot of NBA players in the Seattle's Pro-Am, as well as some of the up and coming high school guys that were eligible to play at the time. I've been pretty blessed that way from a coaching standpoint.
Talk to me about the culture there in Tacoma, because you guys have some hoopers that'll come out of there. JC, IT, man, you can name them all.
I think every city says they have a chip on their shoulder. I think every city, thinks that they have the hardest working and the lunch pail crew. And, I'm also say what we are. I mean, we're in the shadow of Seattle and constantly trying to make a name for ourselves and to prove ourselves. And, as some people say, little brother, I don't view it that way, just because we've always competed with them just fine. So, but yeah, we got a proud group of people, full of grit, full of toughness. And you watch how Avery Bradley plays basketball. You watch how Isaiah Thomas plays basketball. And that tells you about the guy who's the police officer in town, the guy picking up the trash in town, the teachers in town, the coaches in town. I mean, it's gritty. It's hardcore. I mean, we work our butts off out here, and I couldn't ask for 2 better dudes than Avery and Isaiah to kind of show the world what Tacoma is all about.
And for you, with all that said, what does that look like for the kids who are? I'm sure the goal there is for every kid to get a scholarship or play basketball in college. That's probably what everyone wants to do. Is that why you have so much buy-in from these parents, because you've helped produce, really good athletes? Or what is it that gets all these parents talking to you so much on Facebook and on these social media?
Well, I come back to authenticity. I don't think that anything that we do, you can't be fake. And, and I don't know if you remember Dave Chappelle, when keeping it real goes wrong, and he had that big skit where I keep it real and everything goes. Yeah, and I think there's that fine line between keeping it real but being authentic. And I think myself and the guys that I work with, we're pretty authentic. We're flawed. I like to say I've had my contract not renewed twice. Never been fired, but my contract was not renewed twice, right? And I'm authentic. We talk about that. I've had struggles in relationships. We talk about that. We don't hide from that stuff. And I think parents appreciate that. I'm a father before I'm a basketball coach, before I'm a trainer, before I'm a clinician. I'm a father first, and I think that's kind of how I represent myself. And parents trust other parents, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to buy a house from somebody who's never lived in a house, or buy a car from somebody who doesn't have a car. You can bring your kids to train with somebody who doesn't have kids. Not saying it doesn't work, but a guy like me, I got 3 kids, and parents they trust me. They know I've done a decent job raising my kids.
So tell me about one of the toughest keeping it real or authentic conversations you've had to have with a parent and a kid.
Well, sometimes parents invest a lot of money, and the expectation level wants to match the financial investment, but the reality is it doesn't. I mean, sometimes players aren't going to get college scholarships. They're just not quite talented enough, or skilled enough, or athletic enough, and there's some people in this profession that'll continue to cash that check and take that direct deposit. And there's others that I've had to have that conversation with a parent, be like, your son's a junior. He played JV. You're spending a lot of money with me, a lot of money in camps. Maybe that money might be better served, on the academic side of things. Or go to Disneyland, right? If you're spending all this money, take that kid on vacation, show him you love, and it's not about basketball. But those conversations are difficult, from a small business owner's perspective, to tell a client, hey, I don't want your money anymore. Yeah, I feel like I'm doing you a disservice by taking your money. And it's also uncomfortable because you grow to like these kids that you train, you grow to respect them because they work so hard for you. But to tell a kid at 17 years old that, like, look, man, you've been on JV for 3 years now. It doesn't look like it's going to change, and I don't ever want to be a dream killer, but I also got to speak real life to these young people and these families, So I don't want to ever tell a kid that he can't do something, but I also think there is a point to where we may need to, readjust our goals and our dreams a bit.
Now, do you think a kid like that's been on JV for 3 years, do you think it damages your reputation if you take that kid on? It says he trains under you.
No,
has it
not
ever
at
come to
all.
bite you in the butt? Okay.
My reputation, I don't worry about what other folks say about me. I mean, that is, and I think that's part of my authenticity with families. I mean, we have fun, right? I'm a trainer that my number one goal every day is to have fun. I got to work out here this morning, and we're gonna have fun, and I'm gonna kick this girl's butt up and down that court, and we are gonna have fun doing it. And when it gets away from being fun, then we have a problem. So if somebody's, I don't know. That doesn't faze me. Somebody's got to train these kids if they want the training. And if I can help a kid get better, that's what I'm here for. Motivating and inspiring people on the basketball court, that's an hour a day with a kid, or an hour and 15 minutes for a kid. I got to be able to motivate and inspire these kids the rest of their time.
So do you believe in extrinsic motivation? If a kid's not working out outside of your sessions, do you believe you can inject that in them? And how do you do it?
Yeah, we try to hold them accountable, whether it's with homework or extra exercises they should do on their own when they're away from me. But as a trainer, that if a kid works out with you once or twice a week, he's only going to get minimally good. That's just the reality of it. 90 minutes with me a day for once a week can only do so much for you. It's our job to kind of encourage them to build on that. And we can tell, you can tell if a kid didn't do anything all weekend, he shows up on Monday, if he put any effort in over the weekend. So, I think that's part of our job. But, at the same time, gosh, at some point, if your goals are lofty, then your efforts got to be lofty, right? And if I'm the only one that's pushing you and challenging you, or you're only working out because mom and dad make you, it's a problem. And I very early, when kids, let's say I have a camp and I've got 30 kids signed up. When those kids walk in the door, I do registration. And when I do registration, I look at that young person and say, hey, how are you? What's your name? And a lot of times parents want to speak for that young person. Oh, that's Jason. Oh, he's 14. Whoa, wait a minute. If Jason's 14, I want to hear Jason's voice. And so I start day one immediately when someone walks into one of my training sessions, encouraging them to find their voice, encouraging them to take a little bit of ownership of this process. If you rely on mom, dad, and me to motivate and inspire you all day long, then you're not going to reach your goals. You're going to reach our goals, but you'll never reach your own goals.
So winter is coming up soon. I'm not sure when your basketball season starts in Tacoma in Washington, but what is your plan as a trainer around this time? Is it you just focus on the younger kids, 6 through under,
So
or
kind of what I do right now, I'll have classes. So I'll train a team or two in the fall. I'll work with a high school team or two in the fall. Regularly I've got a couple of 6-week classes and I think I have a 9-week class or an 8-week class set up. I'll do my own classes. So I work with a K through 8 cohort, and I just run classes for them. And so I'll have a group of kids coming once a week. I also referee high school basketball. And so I will transition to officiating, and I'm going to actually run a referee kind of a boot camp. So I had a bunch of my referee buddies say, "Man, all that training you do, can you train officials?" And I'm okay. And so I'm putting it together. We'll start in about 3 weeks, like a preseason referee training camp is something I've never done before. So I mean, I do my private works. I have my teams that I'll lead and direct in the fall. I've got one team. It's a first-year head coach, and she's just looking for someone to kind of help her. I wouldn't say change the culture. I don't think the culture has an issue. Help infuse her culture into the team, right? Like help deliver her message in a way that she can't, because she can't coach her team, but I can go in and and really kind of help build some camaraderie and some spirit amongst those young ladies.
so for you, okay, you referee high school basketball, you train. I mean, what else you do? I know you sound like you have a bunch
Yeah,
of
I mean, my big thing is I train full time. I do a lot of guest speaking. I speak at clinics, coaching clinics. I do some motivational speaking at schools and, keynote addresses and things of that nature. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, something we could talk more about too later. I just am in the process of creating a coaching consulting program for basically being a mentor for coaches. When I was coming up, I had a few mentors, but they were always the guys that I played for, and they weren't necessarily strong relationships in the sense of you choose them. They were strong relationships because we had gone through some battles together and we had spent a lot of time together on buses and on the court. But I think sometimes when it comes to mentoring, you need to be with somebody that you just trust implicitly and that you believe in implicitly. So I've actually developed a coaching. I call it consulting, but it's kind of like it's a mentoring program for coaches that want help. And I'll be releasing that probably within the next 2 weeks. I'll have a webinar, and I'll host some people to get them going, and and just kind of lead itself into a little coaching program, a mastermind group. I call it coaching mastermind type of group, which anybody who's been on Facebook or any of these things, you see mastermind thrown around. I love that term, and so that's kind of what I'm developing right now for coaches.
That's amazing. So I have one at 6 a.m. Tuesday, actually 5:30 a.m. Tuesday mornings, and it's great. I mean, it's phenomenal, and I want to get one for the basketball trainers in this niche. So I'm sure that's something I'm sure that's something that everybody's thinking of, but the fact that you're taking action towards it, definitely want to keep that line of communication open, because I'm in for whatever it is.
Can I make a shameless plug? Is that okay? Or give them my website or something like that? Is that okay?
Yeah, man, this is your yeah.
So, my website is tripleimpactcoaching.org. Tripleimpactcoaching.org. I talk about coaches have 3 roles: teacher, leader, and a caring adult. Also a teacher, a leader, or a caretaker of the game. I talk a lot about TLC: teacher, leader, and a caring adult or a caretaker of the game. Research shows that young people are more successful exponentially based on the number of caring adults in their life. A lot of research comes back to that says, for kids to achieve their dreams and goals, they need multiple adults in their life that care for them. And I think as a trainer, as a coach, we can provide, just be a caring adult. And a caring adult is just somebody who has ears and a heart, brother. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who can just listen and empathize. Sometimes they need our advice, but a lot of times young people just want someone to give them an honest listen, So anyway, I talk about triple impact coaching, and that'll be my coaching mentoring program that I'm developing, and more stuff will be released on the website, and I'll make sure obviously you have all of it as well.
For sure. We'll put that in the description. So I want to ask about these A-list trainers and A-list player developers you've been around, that you hang around. So I saw Chris Hippa, you've hung out with, Gannon, Drew Hanlon,
Yep.
but out of all these guys, to name a few, who impresses you the most and why?
It impresses me in what category, I guess, right? Because they all have such different personalities and they bring so much to the table. I mean, I'll tell you, I've known Chris and I have known each other for 20 something years, Chris Hippa and I, and he's the one who got me my start in this. He's the one that, him and a gentleman by the name of Mark Wilkerson, Hoop Official. If you're on Instagram, it's Hoop Official. And then Chris is obviously Chris Hippa. I mean, those are the two guys that have kind of really encouraged me and motivated me to get into this field. When I left Evergreen in 2014, didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't like working for the man. I realized that. And Chris asked me one day, said, "Hey man, I need some help, man. Can you come coach with me?" And he took me to a gym, and he had 75 kids in the gym. And he's like, "Hey man, I just need you. You got that basket over there." He knew, and again, I was a head college coach. We knew I could handle it. And so I laughed and said, "Hey man, I got it." And he handed me a couple bucks afterwards. I said, "Wow, you got paid? You're paying me for this? Like, you're actually paying me to go to run this basket down there?" And that was kind of the I don't know if that's the aha moment, but that was the time when I said, "Wow, this is amazing." I mean, you gave me money to go to encourage kids and clap my hands and have fun. So I'm always appreciative to Chris for kind of giving me that passion, that way to let my passion free. Working, I went through Gannon Baker certification. I mean, just the respect that you have to have for somebody for like Gannon Baker, who set up a VHS camera on the court back in the 90s and the early 2000s and just put a VHS camera up and filmed himself dribbling the basketball. Again, I'm minimizing what he did, but I mean, that everybody does that now, right? Everybody has their iPhone and their iPad and they set it up. But when Gannon Baker was doing that with VHS tapes, come on, brother. I mean, that's, that was a new way of looking at the game. And I know there were skill trainers. I mean, we were blessed up in Seattle with the Seattle Supersonics. We had, Coach Gergerich, who's one of the, and Steve Gordon, two of the forerunners of the what I call the player development movement. So both of those guys were up here in Seattle. So we were pretty blessed that, when I was in the early 90s, being able to watch those guys work in the gym, but not understanding what player development was, though, right? I didn't understand the whole commitment to helping a player's individual skill level and how it fit into the framework of the team. And, so Gannon Baker, legendary. Drew Hanlon, probably the most advanced terminology and solution situation breakdowns that I've seen of the trainers that I've worked with. Just taking a scenario of attacking the rim versus help side defense, and how do you read it and how do you adjust it. I mean, Drew Hanlon, is obviously one of the special ones out there. Nobody handles the ball like Pat the Rock. I got a chance to work with him up close and personal, and I mean, his handles, man, so quick, so amazing. So I mean, those are some of the guys that I've had a chance to, spend a few hours in the gym with, or a few days in the gym with those guys, and pretty blessed, man. I've only been doing this, I'd say, for 3 years, man. I mean, I'm a rookie at this still.
So, okay, that's an interesting question here. Hopefully I worded it correctly. So you've been on both sides. You have the player development side, you have the coaching side too.
Yep.
There are some old heads who probably say, "Man, we used to do this stuff for free. Why does a kid have to pay you to work hard?" For the people who knock the player development niche, because it's new for me as well.
Yeah.
What do you say? How do you play devil's advocate there and empathize with both sides? And what's your conclusion now after these 3 years being in the industry?
I part of me understands where they're coming from, right? I remember Chris Hippa. He came to when I was head coach at Evergreen. I had him do a workout, and he had him jumping off the wrong foot. Oh, what's he's got him jumping off the wrong foot. What's he teaching my kids? Well, that's what Steph Curry shoots all the time. Steph Curry doesn't even shoot regular layups. He's always jumping off we call the wrong foot, but it's not the wrong foot. It's the same hand, same foot, or outside foot. But as a head coach, it took me so long to like understand that there's so much more to the game than out of bounds plays and free throw, fast break. I mean, come on, man. And so when I hear people say, negative things about what we do, a part of it stems from the fact that anybody can be a trainer, right? I call them pop-up trainers. You got pop-up rappers, you got pop-up trainers, right? I put a video on YouTube. I'm a trainer. I'm a rapper. I'm an actor, right? I'm an activist, right? I'm an activist. And so part of it is the watered downness, if that's a word, of the actual what we do and people not understanding. And that's why when I come back to like triple impact coaching, I'm a teacher first and foremost. You can call it I'm not a coach. I don't have a team. Coaches coach on Friday night when the cheerleaders are there and the referees are there. That's when you coach. I'm not a coach, man. I'm a teacher. I just teach basketball. You call me coach because that's respect, right? You call a police officer sir, and you call your teacher Mr. or Mrs. That's just respect. You call me coach out of respect, but I don't have a team, man. I don't have to win any basketball games. From that perspective, I'm a teacher. And so when you see trainers that are sometimes doing some unrealistic things on the court, things that may happen once or twice in a year, you have this opportunity to make this special move. I think those sometimes are the ones that people hone in on. But if you go look at look at some of the things that I put up and it's hard to always put up. No one wants to see a block out drill, right? Online. So I think you get caught up in trying to show cool things online, but with also to keep people interested, but also to show that what you do that separates you. And that's why I'm a teacher, man. I just happen to teach basketball. And I think parents who come to my stuff, they appreciate the discipline and accountability and teaching that comes on in our gym. When people invite me to come out, I do clinics all summer for the Boys and Girls Club. So I hit 6 or 7 different Boys and Girls Clubs all summer. I give them 2-day camps. It's just part of my community give back. And so I travel all over this area, the South Puget Sound area. And when I first get in the gym, those kids are shook because they're not used to that amount of discipline and accountability that I hold them to. And a lot of times they quit because it's a free clinic. They're like, I don't need this. I'm not invested in this. But I think what my reputation has gotten to be around town is the discipline and the accountability. When we line up in groups of 3, we don't line up in groups of 2. If I say line up in 3, we can't have a line of 4 and a line of 2. It seems logical to you and I, but to young people, and I hold them accountable. I said groups of 3. Get yourselves in a group of 3, and I'll sit there and wait for them to figure it out. And it's funny watching 8-year-old kids try to do the math in their head and figure it out. But again, parents appreciate that because a lot of times some of these young parents have a difficult time giving their kids discipline and accountability, and they can bring them to a guy like me and for 90 minutes or 2 hours, their kids get that in a loving way and in a very patient way. I think the biggest compliment that I've gotten is my patience. And I got 2 little kids that are downstairs playing right now, attacking each other. But the level of patience that I have, I think, is what parents appreciate as well.
Man, that's interesting. And so many different ways we can go with that. But the question that comes to mind first is, well, the comment had a big debate with how always like a kind of 10,000 hours. Evan Williams put it perfectly. He said he likes to start fires and then leave them alone.
Right.
So I started doing that a little bit and asking guys like, okay, do we call them trainers, player developers, skill developers, teachers? And I like teachers, and Gannon likes coaches, but I like teachers the best too, because at the core, when you rip everything else away, you're a teacher. So I like that.
I haven't coached a game in since I left the pro-am and then I left Evergreen State, 2.5, 3 years ago. Again, you call me coach, right? I mean, like John Wooden says, they call me coach. Like, yeah, I mean, I think that's, I mean, anybody who has a whistle and a clipboard, I call them coach. I mean, I'm into that, but yeah, I'm a teacher. I mean, I don't have any wins and losses. I don't do halftime talks. I don't, referees and the cheerleaders don't come to my training sessions. I mean, I'm a teacher. I teach basketball.
So tell me this, and you want to flip the switch
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit. Nate Robinson
yeah.
still training, and he's probably eating just as good as he was when he was in the league. But what happened with that entire transition? You see him in the league at one point, then you see him in China running through people's legs.
Hmm,
It's,
hmm.
it's like it happened in no time. What's the
Yeah.
reality behind that situation?
Honestly, I can't speak to it. I don't. I have no idea what goes on in GM's heads and head coaches' heads. I mean, and not to compare Nate to Colin Kaepernick at all. No comparison. But we don't know. Some of us we think we know why Colin Kaepernick's not in the league, but the reality is we don't know what general managers are talking about. I mean, and same thing with Nate. Obviously, size is an issue, and I mean, you look at how they treat Isaiah Thomas. I mean, the guy is the last pick in the draft. He's an all-star today, and he still gets traded. I mean, everything he did for Boston, and I understand it's business. Okay, I get it. It's business. Everything that young man did for Boston, and they trade him. When you're an undersized player, you are just everything is a challenge for you, and that's how it was for Nate. And I think from a basketball standpoint, Nate is a guy that likes the ball in his hands, and sometimes that that can cause a little disruption to the flow of a game. When Carmelo Anthony does it, we accept it, right? When Carmelo gets the ball and he stops the flow of the game, we accept that. But when a guy like Nate Robinson gets the ball and wants to put it on the deck once or twice, it's an issue. And I mean, I don't know if it's height discrimination. I don't know if there's other issues in there that are underlying issues with it. But I mean, Nate's a hell of a player, and I promise you this: if you put him on an NBA court right now, he's cooking. I mean, there ain't no question about it. Nate cooks to this day. So yeah, but again, you and I have no idea what those general managers are talking about and thinking about, and and I wouldn't say that I know Nate well enough to know what's kind of kept him out of the game that way. But I like I said, put him on a court right now with NBA players and he will cook. That's a fact. I mean, so yeah, you never know what's going on with those guys.
Right. And I try to watch the videos with him and Chris, and I'm trying to figure out, is he trying to get back there, or is China treating him so well where he is overseas? Are they treating him
Hey
so
man,
well that it just makes no sense to even
I
try to
mean,
get back
I've had
there?
a few friends go to China. I mean, I've coached this last trip to China. I want to say 4 of my former players were in China on a trip, and I looked at their videos. I'm like, how the heck did all you guys get to China? You're an NAI. You played NAI basketball. You played community college basketball, and the opportunities in China are so vast. I mean, I heard somebody say the other day they have more people that play basketball consistently than we have in America. So American citizens are less than the number of Chinese people that play basketball. I mean, what kind of runs do they have at the YMCA at noon ball? You know what I'm saying, brother? I
Right.
mean, I mean, these dudes play ball, and so so you can go over there and be a celebrity, man, and here it's kind of watered down on one hand, right? I mean, there's semi-pro teams, there's minor league teams, there's the D League, the G League, the NBA. There's all these different things going on where you can go over there and still still kind of shine a bit, I guess. And they paid, and they paid just as well. So I mean, if you love this game and you want to get some money to do it, I mean, there's more opportunities than what you have in your local neighborhood. You know.
I like it. Okay, so two main other questions. I know the baby's in the background. Are they all right? They attacking
You're
each other
good.
still?
Oh, they're good. I just ought to check on them every once in a while.
That's fine. So two other questions. The first one, is it a three? So I saw the video. A guy took off from 3-point
Yeah,
line.
yeah,
Jumped. His foot was behind the 3-point line. He
yeah.
floated and shot a little George Gervin Iceman finger roll and made it. Is that a three?
All of my sources tell me that that's a three. His foot was behind. Now we don't see a 3-point line in the court, so we have to assume that the top of the key is the 3-point line. Okay, if we all can jump to that assumption, he jumped from behind the line and released it. I mean, he jumped from behind the line when he shot it. So, I mean, I'm counting, baby.
Wow. Okay, we have to link that up in this podcast and just get everybody else's opinion. Like,
Yeah,
is
show
it
people the
really a
video.
three?
because if they haven't seen the video, man, people are, they're going to think you and I are a couple weirdos. But when they see the video, then you let them debate it out, man. Start that fire, Myson. Start that fire and then run,
Start,
baby.
start that fire and leave, right? So my last question,
Yep.
Melo has a new shoe. I've seen
Mhm.
their series, and I will go out and put that out there. Like, I have not been the biggest fan of the Lavar Ball, just
Yep.
in terms of the approach, but I really respect them. And listening and watching this last little, I guess you call it a documentary. It's the first reality series, I believe, on Facebook. And I really have a respect for him and the family just for what they're doing in his mind with marketing. With that aside, though, and that said, Melo has a shoe out, 16-year-old. Is that going to hinder him, in your opinion, with his college experience?
Um, Now, you talking about from an eligibility standpoint, or I mean,
Correct.
from all of my understanding is as long as he gives the business back when he becomes a college player. I mean, as a high school player, the rules don't apply. NCAA rules only govern NCAA players. So until he signs a scholarship or an offer letter, technically the NCAA doesn't really have any jurisdiction, from my understanding. So I mean, it seems like when he signs his scholarship with UCLA, when he actually signs it, if he decides to still go there, when he signs it, now he becomes under the purview of the NCAA, which would mean he'd probably have to take his name off the shoe, any ownership stake he has in the company. Not to get too political, but we got a young person here at 16, 17 years old that's under more scrutiny than some of the leaders of our country. In terms of owning a business and conflict of interest. So. Yeah, I mean, I think the NCAA they're looking at it now, and they're not happy with the Ball family. I imagine just because they're so brash and out there with that. But I don't think it's illegal right now. I mean, yeah, I don't think owning a business is just a business owner. I
Right.
mean, that's
I'm
it. It's,
curious to what they do once he gets to UCLA, because he can't
well, then,
monetize it.
yeah,
That
correct. Now, once he signs that letter of intent, then that would change, how he's governed, and I think he would have to probably take his name off the shoe, or at least not profit from it. So, let's say he's a part owner in that business, he'd probably have to just rescind his ownership, and give it back to his dad for a year or two until he graduates. Um, you know,
So okay, and with that being said, let's say and we can't. It's all logistics, all theory right now. But I'm thinking about the Donald De La Haye. It's the article I think you posted or someone in your feed posted about the UCF kicker a
hmm
few years ago that lost
right,
his eligibility because he posted YouTube videos. He monetizes YouTube videos, and the letter said that he's not allowed to monetize on video activity, or he
hmm
can as long as it's not based on his athletics, reputation, prestige, or
yep,
ability.
correct,
So that's where I'm curious. They're building up this brand with all the
right,
ball kids, but once the youngest one gets up there, he's already created that brand. He's already used his prestige, his ability, his own reputation to
right.
grow that. So that's where my question lies. How do you rescind all of that?
Well, I mean, all I can say is that if he owns part of the company, I guess he would sign it over to his father or one of his brothers or his mom or something like that. And I mean, so he wouldn't get a stake in the company, but that's not him. If he doesn't own the company, then therefore he's not making money off of the product, right? I mean, again, we're talking about I'm simplifying it, but I mean, if he says, okay, I own 10% of the company, I'm gonna give my shares back to my dad. He doesn't own part of the company. So now, therefore, you have a random person who happens to be his dad making money off of his image, as
Got it.
opposed to him making the money off of his image. But I mean, this happened with the guy it was a football player that was training for the Olympics, and he had Olympic sponsors. I don't remember, it was a couple years back, and I want to say he was a skier or something like that. And he had he had sponsorship to go to the Olympics, but he also played football. And they were like, you can't do it. You got to give that money back. He's like, wait a minute, this is a whole different sport. But you're not an amateur if you're accepting sponsorship, even for another sport. And I, I think sometimes the NCAA may overstep their bounds because they want to try to keep the playing field even. Which, they do what they feel like they have to do, but I mean, it's young people that are being hurt. It's not old guys and old ladies. It's 20-year-olds that are being hurt by it, so to speak. So It's unfortunate. We'll see what happens. I mean, we got 2 years to watch this thing play out, and Lord knows, Mr. Ball is going to do everything he can to make sure we watch this story play out. He is not going to keep it secret from us, right? I
Oh,
mean,
for sure, marketing genius.
yeah, man. Hats off to that man who is what we called making billion-dollar moves. Right? A lot of people are making $10,000 moves or I want to make $1 million. This brother right here, Mr. Ball, is making billionaire moves. He's um, good, bad, or indifferent. You don't gotta like him. You don't gotta love him. But you as we say, you can't knock the hustle, man. I mean, the kid he's setting his family up for the future, man. And I got 2 little boys, and believe you me that Mosley baller brand. I'm he got my wheels turning. You know what I'm saying? And my kids aren't at that level, obviously, but they might paint. They might can play the piano. Whatever it is my little dudes do, man, we're gonna market the hell out of it.
Right? Inheritance for your children's children, man.
Yeah, man.
So, Coach Mosley, I appreciate your time here. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with, or anyone in your local area?
I mean, shout out to Pacific Northwest, man. I mean, just I appreciate what you're doing. I've actually a few of my friends are involved with the Hoops Institute, and so when you reached out to me, I'd actually already looked you up a little bit and saw what you were doing, and so I mean, I just appreciate what you're doing to trying to change the game, right? I mean, I think and not just I think sometimes not change for the sake of change, but improve the game, and I think we all have that obligation to serve the basketball community. And so just hats off to you. I appreciate what you're doing. And I've heard good things about the Hoops Institute and, from third party sources, people that I know that are signed up with your program. So, man, keep doing what you're doing, young man. I mean, you got old dudes like me watching what you're doing and learning. So, keep doing what you're doing, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And looking forward to the next one.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Myson.